everyone. Welcome to Aldo Meets in conjunction with the Hotel Anfield for episode 18. Flew over, hasn't it? Flew over. And we're joined today by an old friend of mine, JMO, David James. Needs no introduction. And you're welcome, mate.
Thank you.
You've been in great, we've had some great persons like Ian Callan, Sammy Lee, amongst Carrer and some great, so you fit in well there, mate, and it's good to see you.
Thank you for the,
thank you for the
invite.
It's a pleasure, mate. What's happening? What are you up to? What are you doing? Coaching, telly?
TV, painting, driving.
Oh, painting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I seen that. That's good, that.
Thank
I seen
you.
in the paper there yesterday.
Yeah.
I was very impressed, pal. Didn't know you
I've been painting for years, but the one you're referring to was interesting because I didn't know Jill before I met her,
Right.
and the task was to create this portrait of a woman that I never met. So I went through a load of sort of interviews and chats with her, and then sort of made that creation. Yeah, it was really lovely. More about her story than my painting because her story was fascinating. And as we sit here in this wonderful hotel, which I've not been in before.
Yeah, that's good, mate. Yeah, so
and all the success of Liverpool Football Club, it had to start somewhere. And I think in the painting for the women's football, this was the first Women's World Cup it wasn't even official in 1971.
Right, I'm not sure my ignorance there because I read about it prior to seeing the picture, so it's coming back to me now. So you had to do your own work and. So
yeah.
I thought you just sat down and then
No. That was the thing. It was. Normally when I do paintings, there's a hidden message in there somewhere.
Got you.
And with this, I could have just done a simple portrait, and it would have been like, "Oh, that's Jill. Well done." But there was so much to her story, and like any beautiful thing, without being funny, sat here, we're going to be talking about Liverpool, which is a beautiful thing. At the moment, it seems to be a little bit more beautiful than it has been in the past, but. To get to that stage, there's so many different stories. Painting. Long answer to a very simple question.
No, very impressed anyway, mate. And I forgot to ask, thinking about JMO, don't forget Peter Schriewersmann and James Pearce. I missed that out because I was too excited to talk about JMO, about the paintings and whatever's going on.
No, you just didn't want to say his surname.
No, I've got his name right now. It took me 18 months.
I know, yeah. Honestly, it really did.
With the painting, was that something that just you started in childhood and carried on through, or was it in later life, or what?
No, I did normal stuff at school. Was I any good at it? I don't know. I had an exam, typical JMO. I had an exam for my GCSEs, I think, something like that. And you had to, first of all, do the work, but part of the mark was putting the work up on a display. So I went into school, messed around with friends, smoked loads of fags, and then went home. Forgot to put the stuff up on a display, so I got an X. So, yeah. But then I kind of finished painting. I've always been a drawer, so I constantly...
Been a pastime, yeah.
Yeah, I take a pencil and pad away with me quite often and doodle or do drawings of players. And I did a calendar for Watford when I was there because people said, "Oh, your drawing's all right, let's do a calendar." But I didn't start painting until 2005.
Right.
I was forced to as part of a documentary. They said, "We want you to finish with a painting." I said, "I don't do painting." They said, "Well, we want you to do painting." And as soon as I did it, I got hooked. That's it. So I'd say self-taught.
Right.
I just... Put up a canvas and crack on.
I used to love painting by numbers when I was a kid. Do you remember it? When you got it at Christmas. No, first I was painting and then I went to crayons and I just loved that when I was Santa Claus going to bring me painting by numbers. Slightly different to you, pal.
I don't you haven't seen all of my work. But.
Well, did you get a real buzz from doing it? Is it a bit of a release from whatever else is going on? Did you find that when you in your playing days? Or
Yeah, well, as I say, it was 2005. And initially, because I'm quite obsessive, so it became an obsession.
Right.
But at the same time, it was something that I kind of just got relaxed in. It was, sort of good in that sense. Nowadays it's more things in my head, good or bad. I will go, "Oh, I need to paint something," and then I'll just get it all off on the canvas, and then that's it.
I get that.
Yeah, people write, people make music, people do other things. And
absolutely.
For me, painting is the way out.
What do you do, John, with the bad things?
I do crosswords. I do cryptic crosswords, some things. But I used to love drawing myself. You you know, different little things, and all to do with football mostly. But yeah, crosswords get me out of the zone whenever, you know, anxiety or other things that go through life. And you sometimes you think you have to do something. You're going away from football here, and we're counselling each other. but no, it's important.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because I mean, I know there's stories about me playing PlayStations. I think it was a very similar thing. I had to go somewhere to try and process. So now I can do the painting. And I just wonder, and again, we're talking about Liverpool in particular, with the success they're having this season, how the players are dealing with, and it is pressure of a kind, even if it might not manifest themselves into making mistakes in that kind of pressure. Time. They have to diffuse. And every time they get 3 points, it's kind of like, okay, we're maybe getting a bit closer to where we're at. How do I deal with handling that situation? So crosswords or painting, I'm sure we'll find that in time the players will be doing something.
That's the players all that, shouldn't the LFC TV or something? Because how do you cope in your spare time to get your head together? Because J-Mo's spot on. In our time, it was the same. You're thinking about the next game, and you know you get a little bit agitated. You want the game to come, and it's getting in your head a bit, isn't it? Yeah. So
and also, isn't it that we had this chat before, that goalkeepers are obviously quite a special breed anyway. And when you make a mistake,
you've got to be nuts to be a keeper.
Then it's usually a goal. 99 out of 10, it's a goal. So isn't that like maybe an added pressure? I mean, if Salah doesn't score a goal, then go on, there's a midfield defender, goalie to rescue the situation. But the pressure on you is sort of, it's quite binary in a way.
I think you're saying, I think I might be wrong, but eccentricity comes into it for a lot of keepers that have.
I was going to get to
I think certain way, in a nice way. Don't get me wrong, you know what I mean? But in a nice way, to be a keeper, I've always said, like, you've got to be like a big crackers or. You know,
I think I prescribed to that in the old days, because everyone thought that was the case, and because, you know, positional wise, kit wise, everything about us is different. We can have different rules and stuff like that. But it all depends on what you consider a mistake. And I think the easy analogy is let one free hands, it goes in the back of the net, that mistake cost a goal. But if you've kicked the ball in the wrong place and it ends up with someone and that next movement ends up in the back of the net, that's equally a mistake.
Yeah.
And today's players, I think you say Mo Salah if he misses a chance, well, Mo will probably consider that a big mistake. It's how you deal with it. And all these little things adding up. Some people will say, oh, it doesn't matter, he'll score next shot. But with my side, I don't think the analysis was there, especially when I was at Liverpool. You know, we'd play a game on a Saturday and then we wouldn't know anything about it. If you didn't watch Match of the Day in the night, you missed it. Whereas now, you go and change room straight after the game and someone will hand you a laptop or a tablet and you'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I saw this position and all the tactical data stuff. You can actually process straight away. If it's a big mistake, if it's a little mistake, whatever, you've got the opportunity to go, okay, I know why that happened. You don't have to take it home with you. I think with us, it'd be, you know, we might be in an establishment that serves alcohol after the game, and you go, "Oh yeah, no,
you know, It's one way. No, but it was a way to get out of it, you know. But because as a goalkeeper, and J-Mo's spot on, like Mo, and like if I missed the chance, I'd be absolutely devastated and gutted. But most of the time, it didn't cost you. If goalies make that one mistake, fuck. Honestly, the pressure on the goalkeepers is a lot more than strikers for me, because one slight mistake by a goalkeeper might have had a great game. One mistake, and the fingers are pointed at the goalkeepers. True, isn't it?
Yeah. What about coaching? Because of course you had a couple of spells managing over in the Indian Super League. You did your badges. Are you still looking at that as a possible avenue? Or have you moved on from that? Or?
Yeah, mate. I'm sort of halfway through. I'm doing a goalkeeping A license.
Right.
Interestingly, not necessarily to be a goalkeeping coach, because I need to understand first of all, get the qualification, but also understand the processes of going through goalkeeping coaching, because although you know this, when you're playing the game, more often than not, even from goalkeeper's perspective, what are we doing today, coach? We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Da-da-da. You do it to the best of your ability. You walk in, you get a shower, you go home. You don't think that the guys had to formulate a plan. He's had to speak to other coaches and doing all this processing, look at opposition, and make sure that the information or the training that you're getting is the best for the outcome in the game. So I'm looking at all that process. I actually stopped halfway because part of the criteria for the A licence is coaching at first team goalkeepers.
Right.
And at the time, I wasn't with any clubs, and I said I'm not going to go through this course unless I do it the way that it was designed. So I'm in conversation with teams near me to be able to fulfil that criteria. Once I get that qualification, then I will look at whether or not I need to be in a club doing it, or whether I can be involved in some kind of
Analyticism.
I do analyst work as well, been on data courses and stuff like that. I mean, because I'm fascinated in how the process of playing, the process of preparing players, whether it's goalkeepers or it's outfield players, stuff like that. And I'm not sure at the moment whether that means I need to be in a club 24/7 because, again, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
What time are we in? 8 o'clock. Okay. All this stuff just for the coach to say, you got half an hour. And then when you get out on the training field, he says, we need you in 10 minutes. Come on.
So you're looking to the science part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's all interlinked. I mean, you know, even the painting or crossword, it's kind of like, well, why are people doing what they're doing? And how do we get the best out of them? And how can we... You know, it's not just about saving shots in the top corner. There's a lot more involved in getting...
Especially nowadays, the way goalkeepers, to become a sweeper. Like, the first sweeper I seen, Tommy Lawrence done it, Tommy Lawrence, he frankly always had him at the edge of the box. And at the time, no other goalkeeper did it. And I'm thinking, that's different in the late 60s. Then obviously Clem come. He was the super sweeper one in the way Clem did it. But nowadays, it's completely different the way we see the game evolve. They are like a proper...
But do you know what was mad? Sorry, just going off on a quick tangent, was the Arsenal-West Ham game. And when you look at David Raya's positioning, I know on the radio they were talking about how far out he was. And I think the sending off was virtue of the fact that he was 40 yards outside his goal. Now, that's not uncommon for most teams and most goalkeepers. Yet you never or hardly ever see anyone shoot from inside their own half where you'd think there would be a chance, because the way that the systems are, it's kind of like, no, you don't do shoots. We've got to pass this way to get into this position before we can become active almost. It's just, again, the game's evolved in such a way that it become more processed than you would say, hang on, he's off his line. Let me just chuck one over there just so he goes back.
Xabi Alonso style or Stevie Gerrard style, wouldn't it?
I mean, that's a good, that leads nicely into the next part, because before we focus a little bit on your personal journey and with Liverpool and your career as a whole, we wanted to just touch on this season, the title challenge of Liverpool, which looks ever increasingly positive without wanting to get carried away. But how good do you think Alison is in the scheme of goalkeepers and like what's available at the moment, Premier League, Liverpool, because he's clearly given the team like confidence when he's not injured. I mean, that's been a bit of a problem in this last season, but it feels like he's a rock for Liverpool.
I think Ali's career at Liverpool would make him the best goalkeeper in the world. I think this season, obviously, the further the season goes on and the more he plays in it, the more you could say that this season he's once again proven he's the best in the world. But he's had a long spell out, and Queven has done exceptionally well in deputising. Yes. The thing that I love about Ali, and it still happens, it didn't happen against Man City because Man City weren't able to play the game on the weekend. But this season, likewise, he has produced big saves early on in the game, which Liverpool have gone on to win, and the save has been forgotten about. Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, Mo Salah scored 2, he's broken another record. Well, but if Ali doesn't make that save, then the whole game changes.
Yeah. Like the one against Roma. Yeah. Like that was match saving, but last minute a few years back. Well, everyone talked about that, but you're right, when it becomes early on the game, it's slightly forgot about, isn't it? When the first goal's always important.
I mean, he does them late in the game as well. I think Wolves was a clash. There was 1v1 in Wolves game recently where he came out, made the block. And at the moment you go, that's because Ali's the best. Hang on, Mo Salah's just broke another record. Wow, Liverpool did it. And it's kind of like his role gets forgotten about. And just jumping back to the goalkeeper making mistakes. His first game, he tried to drag back and conceded a goal. I think it was Leicester. Right. And it was like, who have we signed? But like pretty quickly he went, hang on, don't worry about that. This guy's good. So he's the best. He's consistent. He's calm. He's got a great beard. I love his beard. He really has a beard.
So now we're talking about that. I'm thinking going back to that few years. So there's always been a debate about Edison and him and who's the number one. And people, I always thought Alison. Maybe I'm because I'm very biased, but like because Manchester City were winning the league, you sort of sway into him when maybe Ali had more to do than what he did. And that's why people said, well, he's got it because City won, they're winning the league and all that. So he was sort of pushed his nose, even though he's Brazil's number one at the time. Well, they're going 50-50, weren't they? So that's interesting to where J-Mo's thought on that, because I've always thought that.
I think
he's the best out of the two.
Yeah, I mean Eddie, I love Eddie as well. I think with Ali that he offers everything. He can offer assists, he can offer the saves, he can offer the calmness. Eddie was in particular with Man City in a side that would expose him to the point that a lot of the goals he was letting in weren't his fault. But there's a difference. Ali's being exposed to similar situations and dealing with it. So that puts him above.
But then you got, oh my God, now you are testing, I've got a difficult surname. You got Madashvili arriving, but Queen Keller has done exceptionally well deputizing, as you said yourself. So how do you think that's going to pan out? Because Keller wants to be number one. He's got one more year to go after this summer. So what's your forecast in that
also
situation?
as well, we're not going to forget the lad Jaros.
Yeah, he did well.
Do you know what? I've watched him, and he's got so much potential. He's early 20s, we know that. And whenever I watch him, I've gone, we're just so lucky to have these goalkeepers. Now, I agree. Where's this fellow going to come into it? I'm looking at it from my perspective and thinking, keeps going.
Yeah.
Because we've got to be fair with him and all that. And he's going to come in with Ali. I don't know. What do you reckon?
Well, you say we're lucky. I think everyone's cost money for Liverpool, and one of my beefs is, and we mentioned Ray Clements as well, who came from Scunthorpe, is Liverpool haven't produced any goalkeepers, and Tommy may have been Liverpool's only. But if you look through the history of Liverpool goalkeepers, as great or as bad as they've been, they've all been bought to the club, including myself. It wasn't like they've come through
like Stevie or
from kids all the way through.
Okay, that's interesting. Because Tommy Lawrence was Scottish.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, the point is not that that's the wrong thing, because they've had some fantastic goalkeepers along the years, but and arguably it's because of great recruitment. It's just when you look at Madashvili, his performances in Euros were exceptional. For a Georgia side who weren't supposed to go anywhere, there's a lot that wasn't asked of his goalkeeping all-round game to demonstrate where Ali might play out the back and to play with the feet. Georgia didn't play that style of football. However, he's had an opportunity this season in La Liga to sort of showcase his capabilities with Valencia. When he comes in, and I think to be fair to Queven, he was brought in before Queven had the opportunity to show that he was as good as he's been. And Queven's always been the sort of the cup goalkeeper, essentially, the odd Premier League game through injuries. But his little spelling proved, I think, more than anything, that he was more than just an adequate number two. Now, what goes forward? Well, if Queven goes, then obviously there has to be a value to that. I know the guys will make a decision based on cost, financial recovery, capabilities, and all this stuff. And if it means, and I haven't had the precise conversation with him, but if it means that Queven is better off staying and he's happy to stay as number two, Madashvili could possibly go on loan again. You mentioned Jaros. Again, this is a guy who hasn't had the exposure. If the three were Madashvili, Queven and Ali, somehow that
doesn't
works.
go, does it?
Well, there's a world where there's a world where it could go, but I wouldn't want to be any of them.
Go on loan.
But then Jaros would have to then consider what his options are. So Liverpool are in a lovely position that they've ended up in a situation where they've got three. I'm going to argue, is it world class is right? I think because Queven's proven himself at the top level of domestic football, which in any other metric would make you a world class level player.
Near enough, therefore.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're winning FA Cups and League Cups regularly, which he is, right, then I think you're capable of playing at international level, which he does, and therefore, if you're at international level, there is an argument. I'm not saying the world's best, but that is a world-class level. So.
He needs to play, because obviously Republic of Ireland, obviously he's the best goalie we've got. We've got, and he needs to be playing on a regular basis. It'd be interesting for me to see what Liverpool do, because obviously the teams in and around Liverpool, like years gone by, like myself, you go to Spain, you don't go to a team that vie against Liverpool. Now, it'd be interesting what happens with Keith. Maybe, into Milan or Atletico Madrid or these, because he's good enough for all of them.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting what the club do, on that score. If he does go, hopefully he stays, Right, Jamie, where did it all start? Tell me how it started when you were a kid.
It's funny because yesterday I was at Luton Town.
Oh, did you start there?
No.
You were a fan.
No. I'm a Luton Town fan, yeah, but I was at Luton Town doing some a campaign I do for reusing football boots, football reboot. But as a kid, I wasn't into football. Single parent family, mother that is. None of the family were particularly sporty, other than my granddad, but he was a rugby man. So football wasn't anything that I was involved in up until 9 years old. My uncle took me to Luton Town.
Was that when you were in the first division?
Yeah. I know. I can't remember the first game I went to. I don't. I just went there.
I remember when you went up years ago when you went up.
Well, there's a wonderful part about that, because when you say the question, where does it all begin? It was like my introduction to football was Luton. My friend who I used to go to school with, he was actually a different year to me, but we used to play football. We used to kick a ball around on the school playground, and I used to go around his house after school. And every Thursday when I knocked the door, his mum would say, "Daniel's not in, he's gone to football." I'm like, "Oh, okay, right, cool." When I used to go around, he would draw pictures religiously of Sil Regis and West Brom. Don't know why.
It's a great fella, Sil, by the way.
Yeah, but all I remember the blue and white stripes, all that stuff. Anyway, in the end, his dad was the manager of the team, the coach. And his mum turned around one day and said, "David, how old are you?" And I went, "Well, I'm 10. When's your birthday?" "August." "Hang on a minute. Well, you can join his team." So I ended up joining his team just so I could be with him rather than to become a footballer. And
in goal or playing out?
No, I just joined his football team. There was no understanding of what it was. I didn't even know how to play football. Other than kicking around in the playground, which wasn't even playing football. It's just a load of kids running around after this ball. The point being is that all of a sudden I joined a team. I go in goal because I didn't know how to play football.
Oh, so you started that and worked your way back?
No, I think I just ended up in goal. I remember, funny enough, at school, I remember one day I'm stood in the middle of the field. It was like one of these classic movies where no one wanted to pass to me. The ball's flying over my head and all that stuff. Loads of goals being scored behind me. And I just looked at him and went, "I reckon I could stop some of them going in," and went in and caught a couple of balls. People were like, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And I was like, "Oh, I bet I can do it again." And that was kind of like my introduction to football, yeah. Joined his team. And from there, the first season, I probably let in 160 goals. I can't remember. Something ridiculous. I think I got best trial award.
Oh, that's all right.
At the time,
We've all been there.
It meant everything.
James is still getting that.
Do you know what? James, we still do that. My grandsons they still do that. The best, It's really nice.
Clubman of the year. But then I joined a better team. We won the county cup. At 12. I went to Tottenham, got invited to go to Tottenham.
Oh, all right.
Spent a year travelling to and from Tottenham, sort of in the night, night time, getting the train and the bus and all that stuff.
Realised they are shite, went back to Luton, I assume.
No. But this was a bizarre thing. It was kind of like, I didn't want to tell anyone except for one mate at school. I went, "I'm going to go and train with Tottenham." I went, "Oh, that's great." And I went, yeah. That was the end of the conversation. So go to Tottenham for a year with my friend. After a year, we had what we thought was a chuck-out night because they do this match on Ashfeld. I conceded a couple of goals and I thought I was going to get chucked out, but somehow I survived. Right. Then we had a game against Watford, a bit under 13s, I think, at the time. And we came up against a lad called Rod Thomas, who was the England's next Pele at 14 years old. Oh, he was massive. He was 5'7" at 13, 14 years old. We lost 6-2. He scored 5. Could have been many, many more. And then all of a sudden, my friend's dad went, "Watford, why don't you come and join them?" I'm like, "Well, after we just got smashed." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, okay. When have they got any games?" He said, "Well, they've got 3 games coming up. Must be school holidays." I'm like, "I'm going." Spending a year at Tottenham and doing one game at the end of it Watford offered 3 games, and then went to
That's
Watford.
closer as well for you, a lot closer.
Yeah, kind of.
Where did you grow up?
Wellingham City, Hertfordshire.
Right.
So went through Watford and went through the whole system. But I think, and again, it's interesting how success or failure in careers or for teams can hinge on one moment. You know, we got 3-3 there in the Champions League, and if Stevie doesn't score that long range shot, it doesn't happen. Do you know, weirdly,
Yeah.
I mean, that's in a very sort of micro scale. But at 15, I was also a high jumper, and I was told that I could break the English high jump record if I practiced really hard for 3 years.
Fosbury Flop.
Yeah, Crosby Flop. Yeah. As opposed to the other one.
The scissors one, wasn't it?
I think that went up to about 120, but yeah. So I had a chance of breaking a record, or I was offered a YTS at Watford, which was £23.50 or something like that a week. And I said, okay, well, if I go to Watford, do I get fed? They went, yeah, you get 3 meals a day. And I'm like, I'll play football. So that was it. My decision was based on food.
Fair enough.
Maslow's hierarchy
I mean,
of
they
needs.
clearly fed you. You know, you became very tall. You know.
Yeah.
And of course, at Watford, you helped them win the FA Youth Cup.
As an overage player.
Were you
My birthday
Right.
helped me out so much because
Oh, okay.
August 1st, it was just on the cusp, so I could play for a year below. Yeah.
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 At
Beat
that
Man
age.
City 2-1.
Yeah.
Rod Tom scored 2.
Oh, okay.
He was pretty good.
Whatever happened to him?
Drinking Bacardi and Coke
Right.
after cleaning the changing rooms as an
yeah.
apprentice.
There's been a few
I
that
think there's nothing wrong with my card personally.
There's quite a lot of apprentices went that way. Take it from me.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it unless you're 16 years old. Yeah.
So, who were the big influences on you? I guess would Steve Perryman have been Watford manager back then when you were kind of breaking through?
Steve basically sacked me. I do. Aldo, he must have had this question so many times. I think to say someone that influenced me would be so wrong. And quite often you kind of navigate and go, oh, that person did this.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for, weirdly, if it wasn't for my friend's mum realising my birthday fitted in, I wouldn't have played for their team. It's not to say that I wouldn't have had a career some other time, but that was pivotal. The dad was pivotal. My friend's dad for taking us to football. My nan, weirdly, because my mum never drove, my nan used to take me to Watford training sessions.
Right.
And her reasoning was that she, obviously, first of all, she drove, but she could do her piano practice, reading the scores, because she was a pianist, while I was doing my training. So if she doesn't do all these little things don't add up. Once I got into the club, Tom Wally, legend of a coach, youth team coach, used to threaten everyone in a really nice way. Never did anything. It's not like there's going to be a lawsuit or anything. But he used to threaten people about, oh, if you don't do this and all that stuff. But he took me and many of the players under his wing. You know, when we were, not to say getting in trouble, when it looked like we might be going off the rails, then he would put us in line. And when I made my debut, it was by chance because Tony Coton had gone to Man City.
Right.
Mel Reese, for whatever reason, was number 2. They didn't fancy him. Back then, if you're number 3, it's not like we're talking about Queven and Madashvili. We're talking about number 3 is probably a youth team goalkeeper. And next thing, I'm in the first team for the first game of the season. So whoever made that decision, for whatever reason, that was an influential thing.
I played against you. Just come to me now, Demo. Tranmere against Watford. One of your first games. Just come to me now. Your debut wasn't against us, was it?
No, it was against
What year was that? Early 90s, wasn't it?
1990. Well, 1990 was the debut. I'd have to think back. I used to remember every game.
That's just come across me now because I always thought I'd play against Jim, but yeah, I did.
We would have done, yeah.
And then coming up to the summer of '92 when the move to Liverpool happens, did you know for a while beforehand that they were seriously thinking about signing you? Were there other clubs in for you at the same time?
Yeah, there were. It was really that era was really interesting because the transfer window was pretty much open till the last month of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Aston Villa had shown interest, so I went and met Ron Atkinson, sat down, had a chat with him. Ron's a nice guy. Wasn't happy with the chat personally. I also had an advisor. Now I don't know what was going on. I'm not sure whether the advisor, well, hopefully the advisor knew more than I did. But there were other clubs interested who I wasn't allowed to talk to.
Right.
And as a player, you kind of go, look, let me just play my game and you do whatever you need to do. And it was kind of like, okay, well, we won't go there then. Then all of a sudden, end of the season, Liverpool have shown interest because I think they have something similar now, don't they? Where Liverpool had to pay compensation to Watford. Oh no, it was before the Bosman rule. So my contract effectively was, or my registration was with Watford. So we had to go to tribunal. It was weird. Again, I'm sat here now. I don't know if this place was open then, but I didn't really understand how big Liverpool was. And going back to my Luton days, and again, pivotal moments, Liverpool came down around to Kenilworth Road, and I'm watching, and Bruce is in goal. This corner comes in, and Bruce runs out to the penalty spot, jumps up and catches it. I'm like, wow, who is this geezer? And that was it. I was obsessed. It was like, I can jump high. I'm a high jumper. So I can jump high and catch crosses. So from that moment, I'm just running out like a lunatic trying to catch everything. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But if it hadn't been for Bruce, I wouldn't have thought about it. If I hadn't been there at that moment, again, I don't think my game would have evolved the way it was. We're not obviously, we weren't privy to social media where someone goes, oh, look, a million people have seen this event. It's kind of like you had to be there at that moment. And it had to. I liken it to Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I mean, that's interesting because you then joined at only 21 for £1 million, was it?
And it was £1 million with 300. It was equal to the English record at the time. It would have been 1.3 in the end.
And obviously Bruce Grobbelaar was slowly sort of in the twilight of his career type thing. So how was that communicated? What was the vibe like? Was he welcoming when you joined? Because you must have been a massive threat to him.
Well, if we start with the Luton game, I already liked Bruce because he was visual. Liverpool were successful, and if you watch football, then Liverpool would inevitably on telly. Seeing him at Luton, then as an apprentice at Watford, Liverpool came down to Vicarage Road, and our jobs were to clean the changing rooms, prepare the teas before and a half time. Like, Bruce comes in and says, I need a cap because the sun was low. And I'm like, Bruce Grobbelaar, I'll go and get some caps from the club shop. So I run up to the club shop, pulled out 3 caps.
Great.
All with Watford on, brought them down, and he's like, I can't wear them. We've got Watford on. I'm like, oh. My hero would just diss me. I kind of he sort of tarnished my love for him. I managed to polish off. So when I joined Liverpool, all of a sudden it's like Bruce is the number one. We had a pre-season in a place called El Choco in Italy. I think it was El Choco, this resort, and there's a swimming pool there with a diving board. I think Bruce went in and sort of done a half nice dive, and I'm like, I can dive better than that. And then I dive. And by the end of it, we're trying to break the world record, longest dive and all that stuff. But it was that competitive nature. And Bruce was highly competitive. I was highly competitive. So there was a bit where we, I think, respected each other. And by chance as well, again, how these things happen. So the Premier League has just started. There hadn't been a live Premier League game because the Premier League hadn't started. Saturday was just normal 3:00 kickoffs from what I remember. First live game was on Sunday, Nottingham Forest entertained Liverpool. Bruce decided to go and play for Zimbabwe that weekend, which meant I played in the first live game in the Premier League.
There you go.
We ended up losing the game. Defensive error and Teddy Sheringham smashing in the top corner sort of led to that. But it was
the Forest, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I kept my place, and it was kind of like, this shouldn't have happened. I think in a normal world, Bruce would have stayed at home. I wouldn't have played possibly that season. As typical, you sort of bring in a youngster and let them bed in. But it kind of peaked, I think, in the second game against Sheffield United where we won 2-1, because after that, it didn't get too much better.
But as you said, very often in life, it's little moments, little coincidences that sort of lead you down this way rather than a different route. I'm sure you would have been fine, the different route, just being an artist or whatever, but you ended up playing 277 caps for Liverpool, which is fair enough.
It's meant to be there in some ways.
Should have been more.
But lastly, before we have our first little break, how did you find your early days in Liverpool? Moving up to Liverpool must have been a bit different to what you were used to.
Yeah. I was a Hertfordshire boy through and through. I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I lived in a hotel briefly. then lived over the water. And there's lots of recommendations from current players where to live. And I don't think anyone dislikes Liverpool as a city to live in, but as a Liverpool player, you don't want to live in a city, especially back then. Sure. Whereas a completely very
Still
different world.
We're a lot of Southport one.
Yeah. So my then wife was from Cardiff, and pretty much everywhere that I lived throughout my career was the closest route to Cardiff. So we lived on the Wirral. We don't live Liverpool North. No.
Nothing is close to Cardiff, though. Really.
It was like that at Oxford, as stupid as well. I should have lived near Oxford where we trained, but I was up on the northern route, so I'm not thinking that every day I travelled an hour or 50 minutes into training, because it's only like an hour and 3/4 to Liverpool. I get that, mate.
And again, Liverpool was it was an interesting city because, I mean, historically, and in sort of like in more sort of recent history, there'd been some events around here. There were events when, with the Dockers and Robbie's support and all things like this. So it was a very different lifestyle. Plus, I was playing for Liverpool, which meant that a lot more people knew me than I was at Watford. I think in the first couple of years, I didn't handle a lot of it well, because I didn't really understand the enormity of the club to start with, let alone living in the city.
That's natural though, mate. That's just natural.
Yeah, well, I think in hindsight, and I'm sure a lot of players now will go through the process of working out exactly what they're moving into.
You get the help with people around you now. Not being funny, you come to Liverpool, and Jamo's right, it's nuts. And you go to town, you go, bloody hell, it's just, you go, this all about? It's just, especially with footballers are concerned. You had the Beatles, then you got the footballers, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I fell in love with the city. That's one thing.
Yeah. I think everybody does when they come here. I mean, everybody that visits me privately, they have got certain perceptions, potentially, some of it informed from the old days and certain things they might have seen in the news or whatever. But when they leave, they always say, Peter, we know why you love living in Liverpool, And
well, the biggest one for me, and again, you've got to think of the history of football. In the 80s, there was a lot of violence.
The Toxters riots was the
in football. Football hooligans. There was lots and lots of hooligans.
Well, you should have seen it in the 70s when I used to go away with Liverpool James. I got caught in some instances, by the way.
But this was normal. So, growing up in Hertfordshire, there was a lot of different local clubs, North London clubs and stuff like that. So I would regularly go and watch as a football fan and see all this stuff going on. So my first Merseyside derby, I remember doing a warm-up and I've looked over my shoulder. There's a block of blue. Well, it's going to kick off. In my head, I'm thinking, it's going to kick off. Anyway, we win the game 2-1 and, there was banter going on. But then I understood the mechanism in Liverpool. You've got families with blue and red who go and watch. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, there is this, it's not hatred, there's this rivalry, but it's understood that it's part of the fabric of Liverpool. And say that's what you end up falling in love with. Not the fact that it's like, we hate you. And yes, on match day, they do not tell me that I'm the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of part one. Intriguing. Loved every minute of it. With Peter, James and Jamo. So we'll see you shortly for part two.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me tell you the story of a poor boy. He was sent far away from his home to fight for his king and his country, and also the old folks back home. So they put him in a Highland division.
Welcome back to part two, Aldo Meets with Jamo and the lads. The first season, Dave, it was a bit different for you because there was chopping and changing, wasn't it? I think Hoops was there as well, wasn't he?
Mike and
he's the best drinker I've ever had a drink with. Mike. Hollow legs.
That comes from a true pro.
Hollow
that is some tribute.
That is some tribute. We'll definitely make it on the highlight reel.
I'll tell you the story once. He's a great lad, but he can the quickest ever. Once in the Christmas party, I think he drowned 6 pints in a minute. And one after another on hollow legs.
More than Steve Nicol did.
Oh yeah.
After our podcast.
And he's more sober than me at the end of the night.
We had to virtually stabilise him into the taxi.
I was going to say, I'd imagine Mike looked like he hadn't just drunk 6 pints, whereas Steve probably did.
He did, yeah. And he couldn't walk anymore.
But going back to that, like he did, Suey changed his goalkeepers a few times that season. What really happened? And I think the season after a little bit as well, didn't he?
No, it was rough. It was rough. As I said, I played that first game. I think it was 12 games, something like that, including cup games. It finished because my form kind of went and dipped. We had a game against Leeds where I played well, very well. Up until the last couple of minutes, I had a corner and it got flicked and they got an equaliser. Headlines, we've got another Bruce Grobbler, words to that effect. And it was kind of like, okay. And I said, I didn't realise this, but I did an interview with BBC after. And the question was something along the lines of, did you think it was going to be so, you'd have so much to do playing for Liverpool? And I was like, no, I didn't think so. Whatever. I was being honest. And that didn't help my cause. Anyway, we played Chesterfield, the Istvan Kosma game. So we drew at Anfield in the League Cup 4-4 with Chesterfield.
Wow.
I think we were 4 down at some point. I'd had a beast of the first half. I knew that I wasn't playing the next game, not because of the result, because at one point the ball was kicked towards the dugout. Bruce jumped up and caught it, and the whole of Anfield cheered. I thought, yeah, I'm out. So, and from then it didn't really recover. I was in and out. I played towards the end, got sent off against Norwich. 2 games before the end, 3 games before the end. Which I kicked a player who elbowed me in the back, gave away a penalty. Suey said to me afterwards, he said, if you're going to get sent off for kicking someone, kick them properly. Because all it was like an ankle tap. We played the following game against Oldham. Well, I think we lost 3-2. I had another beast and ended up in a major row with Ronnie Moran. And
I had a few of them with Ronnie, by the way.
But I didn't start the next season. And it took me months. I mean, Suey had gone, Evo had taken over. I reached 17 stone because we used to weigh ourselves regularly. And I reached 17 stone and I just went, what am I doing? What was
your natural weight? Really
16 max. I was being paid to be a footballer who was not being a footballer. And I was just lost going and training, doing whatever. I had no chance of, no sight of getting into the team or anything like that. Very delusional at the time. Weighed myself and then went, I've got to sort myself out here. So I started doing extra exercising, training and stuff like that. Lost loads of weight. Again, it was Leeds away. Bruce came off with, 10, 15 minutes to go. I played and then that was it. Didn't miss a game for 3 years. Yeah. 3.5 years. So
I think it was 212 consecutive appearances you made from February 94 to February 98. I mean, that Roy Evans was not long after he'd taken over. He basically said, "You are my man." That must have given you a huge confidence.
Well, I'd like to say I worked for it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally weighing myself that day changed my whole focus on things. That run was good. It was we had success in the League Cup, obviously failure in the FA Cup final, but it's frustrating looking back at it because you look at the success that Man United had. I think we had players equal to them, but they had an ethos which was very different to ours off the field. And when I say that, we were happy to be on what was becoming very popular at the time, magazines. We were happy to be on TV shows. I was doing my modelling. Not that any of this was wrong, but we were choosing to do things which Man United weren't. So the public perception was they're winning stuff and not doing anything wrong. We're not winning stuff and we're doing everything wrong. And I think
people can turn that around. But you weren't the only one. Jason McAteer was doing Head and Shoulders.
Watch
and go, and I tell you what, it all fucking went. Have you seen Jason? He's had it done twice.
The interesting thing was Ryan Giggs' emergence. This 17-year-old or whatever he was at Manchester United. Alex Ferguson banned him from having any off-field sponsors in his first couple of seasons, and it was kind of like, oh, that's a bit interesting. And as soon as he allowed him to do it, I think he had Kodak and something else, his form went off the rails. And it was almost like Alex Ferguson protected him in the get-go to let him get the start. And I don't think, when I say we didn't have the protection, we didn't have the foresight to think, hang on a minute, what we're doing is probably not helping us play better football. We were still, I say this respectfully, in an old regime of football where Manchester United had tweaked themselves to be a better version of it. And that was a frustration.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I didn't miss a game, and because as I probably alluded to before, I like records and breaking records, and I looked at I got all the Liverpool books out. I was like, okay, so I've done 200 and whatever it is. Hang on a minute,
Jason Neely.
Phil Neal, 440 games in a row. Then he missed a week and then done 127 in a row. Something stupid like that. I was like,
do you know one of the stories I've got to say? One of the stories about Neely, which is this is the way it was in them days. You know, you're injured and you know you're going for record. You've got a little tweak. You'll throw a jab in. You know, cortisone. You get through it. Don't we've had them loads of them. Nearly had a broken toe in one game. So no, he did because he wanted to keep the record. He played with a size 9 on one foot and a size 7 with the other foot to get through it. Now that is football in the old days. I'm a dinosaur, but that tells you what they used to do to extremities. And you do the same yourself, wouldn't you?
Did the Spice Boys tag annoy you?
Oh, we're not talking about the fucking Spice Boys again.
Did, because
you were just jealous, John.
I was not a Spice Boy. I wasn't in that gang. I was married with kids, and the Spice Boys essentially were the younger lot, Jane
Redknapp, Jason,
Babsy. I mean, Babsy and Stan, I think, flip-flop between Scary Spice, but I wasn't part of it. Right. I was kind of put in there retrospectively. Somehow. But
you were modelling suits for Armani, no?
Yeah, but they'd already been called the Spice Boys before then.
Yeah.
So the suits.
No,
what about
don't talk about fucking suits. Man United fans are getting a fucking hard on with this.
We have to address this quickly. So I've done the modelling for Armani, and 96 Cup final. The old tradition was everyone gets a club suit, cup final suit. Blah,
We've
blah,
done
blah.
it all the time, didn't we? It was just.
Well, you did, yeah, because you always went to cup finals. But anyway, we had a deal with Cecil G, I think it was. I don't know if they're still around. And the lad said, "Oh, JMO, can you get Armani to do suits?" I'm thinking, all right, phone them up. And I'm like, the press woman or whatever her name was. And I went, hi, it's Dave James, Liverpool. We're playing in the FA Cup final. That's got a really big football match in England. And the guys have asked if we could have Armani suits. Okay, I'll get back to you, she says. She phones me back. She says, we can do it, but it's going to cost, I think it was 125 quid. And I'm like, our lads are not spending a penny on club suits. Okay, J-Man, we'll do it. Okay, right, here's John Barnes' number. Bang. And that was it. My involvement was out the window. And if you remember back those days when John Barnes was wearing suits, what we wore for the cup final was absolutely toned down. This guy was like a TV test site. You know, he was like colours all over the place. So
I'm glad Jay Musk said that, because everyone thought it was Jay Musk got the blame for
this.
And he's come out and said that as it is. The colour was wherever it was the lads together wanted that colour. And just change. I fucking don't hate. I hate talking about that because we got beat. If we'd have won, best dressed myself.
Best dressed team ever. Yeah. But it was unfortunate. It would have been nice if Peter Schmeichel had dived in that cup final.
What was the period like in 98, 99 when Julia came in as joint manager with Roy? That must have been a strange situation for the players.
Excuse me. Yeah. It was a straight. I mean, I personally, it was paradoxical because I'd achieved my biggest sort of individual goal by playing for England or making my debut for England, and then promptly getting bombed out. Excuse me, in the previous season, I was playing pretty shit at the time. Anyway, Gerard comes in and we were like, "What's going on?" And the thing with Gerard was he had this very European, I would say, advanced view on how footballers should be footballers as athletes and stuff like that. It was challenging compared to what we were still like as a team. And yeah, we found it difficult. He wanted different things. I mean, at the time, as I say, I didn't like it. I wasn't particularly friendly towards him. Not that I was aggressive towards him, but we were a clash of personalities. To the point that one day I was banned from the training, the gym, because the fitness trainer felt that I was taking the piss in the session, and I wasn't. I knew what I was doing and just doing it quickly, whatever. Had the meeting with Gerard, and then Brad had been brought in by that time, I think. which wasn't good because my friendship with Joe, the goalkeeping coach, was then compromised because he was part of the acquisition. Similar to we were talking about Ali and Queven. The goalie coach has to bring this guy in. So anyway, that was all compromised. One thing that Gerard did, and I now love him for it, was he made sure that every player shook every other player's hand before the game. And I refused to shake Brad's because he'd taken my place. And he pulled me aside and he said, why won't you shake your teammate's hand? I said, because he's fucking taken my place. And he's like, yeah, but he's your teammate and we're here for Liverpool to win. You have to, respect your teammate. And I gingerly shook Brad's hand. It wasn't as bad as I felt. But then it became something that I had to do going forward. Every team I was in, you'd always shake everyone's hand and you'd always make sure that everyone was fighting for the same cause, which is that team winning the game of football. So mad transition. I ended up leaving, going to Aston Villa. And it was then that I respected.
277 games for Liverpool.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Should have been more.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Was it
still very good, mate? Then you went to Villa.
Difficult to leave, or?
No. I knew my days were done.
Right.
I had a year left on my contract. The Bosman ruling had just come in. There was an opportunity for me to sit there for a year and try and reap the benefits of a non-contractual agreement, end of contract agreement with someone. And I just thought, I want to get back to playing for England. I'm not going to do it being Liverpool's number 2. I'm not welcome here from a coaching point of view. And a drunken day at the races with Steve McManaman and Robbie Fowler decided my fate. Because Macca went, in the box next door is Doug Ellis. I'm like, who's that? He's gone, Aston Villa owner. And I'm like, he said, come on, let's go and say hello. And I'm like, all right. We walk in there and I've sat at the end of the table. Macca, as you know, loveliest guy.
Okay.
Chatting with Doug like they're best mates. And he says, how are you, Doug? And he went, I'm disappointed. We've lost the best goalkeeper in the Premier League because Bosnich had just signed for United. And I've gone, second. And he went, who's the first? And I went, me. Now, if I hadn't been drunk, I would never have said it. I can't remember what happened after that conversation, but within a few days, my agent rang up and said, Doug Ellis was quite impressed with you and he wants you to sign for Aston Villa. So,
do you know what his nickname was? Deadly Doug.
Deadly Doug.
Yeah.
Deadly Doug. I met him. When I met him in Magaluf. It was with the Tranmere lads. We came after the season. We were in this bar having balls. We didn't have. And he was there. And he had a great chat for him for about an hour. He was sound, he was actually. So was he good to you? Yeah. All right.
Well, he got me to Aston Villa.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that happened after that which wasn't so good, but it was interesting because, as I say, I was at a point where I had to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it wasn't I didn't love Liverpool, I didn't want to be part of the continuing story, but it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I had to move. And fortunately, as far as my career was concerned, maybe as far as Liverpool's was as well at the time, but it worked out okay.
And you mentioned before about the headlines about being addicted to PlayStation and all the rest. What was actually the truth with that?
That was frustrating. And again, if you look at the way that football's evolved now, I thought about this just the other day, funnily enough. What do they call it? When a press guy interviews you.
Yeah, door knocking.
Door knocking, right. So the way, you wouldn't know because it was slightly, okay, so when I first joined Liverpool, they didn't have a changing facility at Melwood.
That's right, yeah.
We used to get the bus from Anfield, go to Melwood. Yeah. On a winter's day, the bus is steamed up, the seats are covered in crap. Anyway, they create the changing facilities and all that. We used to get out of our car, walk to the door to get into the facility, and the press guys would start chatting to you on the way in. So you could say something without even thinking about it, and it would end up as a headline. Yeah. We also had some friends in the media, friends of other players, whatever. I remember one day just sitting in the car, and again, I was going through a bit of a bad patch. A friend of mine who was an Olympic athlete talked about PlayStation. He said, my coach does not let me play PlayStation on the day of an event because it takes away nervous energy. I'm thinking, I play the PlayStation a lot. Going back to the painting, that was my place to just get away. Yeah. And I told it to him and I said, I play PlayStation a lot and sometimes I might play a couple of hours, few hours before a game. And my friend told me this. So it was I'd kind of stopped doing it by that point. He ran the story. He was on the broadsheet. One of the redhead papers grabbed hold of his disgusting redhead papers, grabbed hold of it, and turned it into this big thing that I was addicted to the PlayStation. And even today, it's like, there's a PlayStation. I'm like, no, they usually say, how's your Xbox? I'm like, I played PlayStation.
That's right. Honestly, one slip of the tongue, you're in the shite, as they say, and that's much. You learn that as when you're in football, especially when you're young. I got caught out loads of times. But then you realise you just got to bite your tongue and say the right things, even though you don't want that to come out. Or you say it in a different manner. The older Kenny Dalglish was the best at it. When he was player manager, because he tried to twist it round all the time and throw things at you. To me, in them days, they're not so bad these days, I don't think, because they're not going to get caught out. Yeah. So that's the end of the second part of Aldo Meets. So we'll be back shortly.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me tell you the story of a poor boy. He was sent far away from his home to fight for his king and his country, and also the old folks back home. So they put him in a Highland division, sent him out.
Welcome back to part 3. It's gone so very, very quick because it's good stuff. James?
Yeah, David, so after Liverpool, Villa, West Ham, Man City, then Portsmouth, having suffered FA Cup final heartache with Liverpool and with Villa, how special was it winning that final with Portsmouth?
Weirdly, when you actually look at that competitive year, that run through the FA Cup, we only played one Premier League team, which was Man United away in the 6th round. Everyone else was, I think, Championship. We won 5 of the 6 games 1-0. We lost. We won 2-1 against Plymouth in our only home game, which was weird. The Man United one was great because as soon as they announced and the FA Cup 6th round draw, Manchester United versus Portsmouth, we were like, oh, okay, well the cup was a nice run this season. We're out. Whatever. We get to Old Trafford. We're in the change room. Harry walks in. Team lads, and it's the best team they could. And I'm like, oh shit. And then a minute later, it's like, well, it can't get any worse. Fine. Okay, let's go and play the game. Goal line clearances, sending off penalties. We forge this 1-0 win, and then we go and beat 2 championship sides to win the trophy. There's part of my want for winning stuff, competitive side of me, where I go, great, I had an FA Youth Cup winning medal. Now I've got the real one. So I'm one of these unique people who've got both. We should have won the cup, so there was the enjoyment of winning the game, but there was also the expectation that we should have won it. It wasn't until the following day, and I think this is the bit that I have learnt to love about football. The following day, we got to South Sea Common. Roads are empty. I didn't know where we were going because I didn't live in Portsmouth. I live in Devon. But so we turned the corner, and it's like a scene from a zombie movie. There are bodies everywhere. And they reckon there was 200,000 people there. Right, the whole of South Sea, surrounding areas, had come to celebrate Portsmouth winning the cup. And at that moment, I went, this is what Portsmouth mean to their community. So when you see Liverpool fans, this is where my development, sorry, I have to go off on this tangent. I meet fans all around the world who are Liverpool supporters. They have this passion where Liverpool is effectively a family. And you wouldn't understand it until you've seen it and felt it and spoke to them. I sit in bars with people and just chat about Liverpool and their love for the club, not about what I did, but just their love for the club. Winning the cup was superb, yes. It also ruined the club because most players had a contractual agreement or a bonus if they qualify for Europe. Right. Portsmouth are never going to qualify for Europe, so it's easier to write these big bonuses in. Yeah, and the rumour is that someone in the club went, as soon as that final whistle went, we are ruined.
Who's the chairman then? I met him a few times.
Mack, I think it was. Was it Guy Mack? Yeah, some son of a Russian gun runner.
Was it Milan Mandaric? Was it him back then?
I might.
Right.
Do you know? I can't remember.
Right.
All I remember is that the club fell apart drastically to the point that one of my friends sent me this thing. One of the achievements. I think I was still in one of the oldest Premier League lineup ever. I think our average age was about 29. Yeah, we were bare bones. We managed to get to a cup final again in 2007. But the frustrating thing was that having played in 4 cup finals, FA Cup finals, all 1-0, I think all second half goals. but that day was special. But it was special for football. It was not a sexy cup final. It was Portsmouth versus Cardiff.
Portsmouth is like, I remember my first ever big game for Liverpool. We went to Portsmouth in Division 4. And it was like 20 odd thousand.
Oh,
and
mad.
I'm playing in front of 5,000 every week. And I went, wow. And the Pompey Chimes are going around. It's a great theatre for football. And we actually beat them 2-0. It was my first big game that I went, wow, we've come here and beat them. I'll never forget it. But every time I've been to Portsmouth, many times, favourites. They are a special breed there, aren't they?
It's lovely. And there's a lot of similarities. I mean, I think with football clubs in a lot of parts of England, the economic structure wasn't particularly great. Yeah.
They had problems like ours with the docks, and then obviously they called Southampton Scummers and all that when they came in and they took over the jobs. And so there's a lot of things quite similar to Portsmouth and what Liverpool went through in the East. Good club.
And of course, you played on into your 40s and dropped down the leagues a bit with Bristol City and Bournemouth, and you had a spell in Iceland, and then India, I think, to finish off with. Yeah. Were you just determined?
Iceland, I never knew that.
Yeah. Was that when Herman Hreidarsson was managing over there? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite apt because we're here recording this the night that Liverpool play Newcastle, and Eddie Howe was my manager at Bournemouth.
Right.
He didn't sign me; he came after me, but he politely sacked me. I don't need to tell you the story, but I literally, we'll put it this way. One day he turned around and said, "Look, we need to talk about your contract. You're not going to be involved next year, but you're not being dropped." And I was like, "Fine." And I had an indifferent game, and he called me in on the Monday and basically said, "You're not going to be playing anymore this season." And mentioned Herman. He said, I've been talking about Herman. If you want to go do some stuff with him, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I walked out the door, and I'm like, I've just been sacked.
Yeah, in a nice way.
Right. But Herman rang me up and he went, "What are you up to?" And I went, "Not a lot." And he went,
just been sacked.
"You're coming to be my assistant manager in Iceland." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." And then went out, we did a season, the Icelandic season, which is 6 months. It was magical.
Was that
absolutely
Reykjavik? Yeah.
No, we were on Hamey, the Westman Islands. But when I was talking about the experience with Portsmouth and the fans, to go to Iceland where 1,000 people is a big crowd, but they still have this passion for local football and for Liverpool. I mean, we watched numerous Liverpool games, whatever. But I was the foreigner. And it was really nice because I didn't understand Icelandic except for Gondain and Kjúklinga, which is chicken. We like chicken wings, so it was Kjúklinga wingers. But Herman was absolutely wonderful. We had a really, really good time. Played Red Star Belgrade in the European qualifier. All these things, 35,000 people for an Icelandic team that only plays in front of hundreds. All these experiences with my teammates was just phenomenal. And then India, and wow, India was incredible as well. Again, from a playing point, you've got players who don't have the ability of Premier League players, which I'd spent most of my career playing with, or international players at that level, but they're trying just as hard to be the best they can be. And again, the dedication that you see in India, that you see in Iceland, that you see in England, it's the same dedication. It just has different results. And as a player, first of all, it was important. As a manager later on, then I understood all the things I went through, even with the PlayStation. If I saw players on games all the time, I would start asking questions because I think I've been there. Why are you doing this? Not that you don't do it, but just having a conversation. And just to experience foreign football, being part of that foreign football fabric was immense.
And for 44 to play to 44.
43. I finished at 43.
I've always said goalkeepers can do that. Obviously I played till nearly 40, dead lucky, no real injuries and all that. But that's something to be proud of, I think, to play that age, in the capacity which you did.
We got to another cup final with them. With Kerala Blasters, and we lost 1-0 again, corner, last minute. Smallest player on the pitch. Wow, how can he head that in? And I sat while they're preparing all the celebrations for the winners, I sat down on the bench and I went, "That's it, J-Mac." And that was a moment I knew that I wasn't going to play anymore. I know I was 43, but it was kind of like I couldn't do any more.
David, just before we go into our little famous quiz, obviously you've had quite a long England career as well.
Long.
Yeah, 97 to 2010, played in the Euros 2004, World Cup 2010, Hoddle, Keegan, McLaren, Capello. What are your fondest memories of your England career?
Fondest.
Obviously,
it was a
from
long
German
time.
point of view, there haven't been many fond moments.
No,
playing for
well,
England,
it's
for you
when you're
personally.
a player for a team, especially in the national level. I mean, your success is regarded on what you win.
Yeah, well,
We were the golden generation, apparently, a bit like Spice Boys. We were the golden generation who never knew we were at the time until now. And I look at what they've achieved in the last under Gareth Southgate in particular. Well, they must be the platinum generation because they've achieved more or got closer to achieving something. Fond memories. First of all, my debut, even though it wasn't spectacular, but the one game that changed things for me was playing in the World Cup against Algeria, second game, because Rob Green's mistake in the first game or misreading of the slow shot. And then playing in Algeria because that was my World Cup debut, finals debut, and I was 39 years old. And it was kind of like, if you'd have asked me 2 years ago would this have been achievable, I would have said no way.
Yeah.
But I'd stuck at it.
amazing.
Maybe because the competition wasn't as good as it was when we were talking before. But whatever, I managed to play in that game, kept a clean sheet. Crap result because we drew 0-0, but tactics.
Right then.
Belhash,
How many caps do you end up?
53, not enough.
Wow,
Still,
I think I still have the record. I must have a record for the shortest appearance as well, not including end of match subs, because I came on at half time against Tottenham the week before I was supposed to play for West Ham. Crashed into Martin Keown, got stretchered off a minute later, and then missed 4 months with a knackered PCL.
Martin's an awkward lad to hit. I played against him as well. He's freaking all over me like a rash. Who's your favourite?
I got a minute and a half cap.
Who's your favourite manager of all of them that you played for England?
For England?
Yeah. Who's your favourite one that you...
Fabio.
Fabio.
And he was the one who talked to me the
Right.
least. But I totally understood him. He got me to be good enough to play for England. I like Sven. I thought Sven was lovely.
What about club level?
2. Eddie Howe, because he's the most polite sackerer in football. I like the thing I love about Eddie is, and Richard Hughes, who obviously now works for Liverpool, he asked me because he was my teammate. He said, "Do you like it? What do you think of Eddie?" And I said, "I think it's great." Well, what do you mean by great? And I said, "Well, look at our changing room. We've got all these insecure players at League One, which is probably one of the worst divisions to be in for insecurity." Eddie comes in and he talks in such a way that everybody hears him and everybody understands him, and he gets the message over. That is incredible. So, and Eddie then took Bournemouth 2 seasons later into the Premier League.
Sure.
So with 7 or 8 players from that League One side. So that for me was remarkable. But Harry Redknapp was the best. In a very complete opposite way, where Harry would go, basically, you make sure you play well, you can do what you want. Not that I did anything wrong. I travelled 2.5 hours a day to training and 2.5 hours back, but still maintain a high level of performance because I had a manager who trusted what I was going to do.
That's tough to do, though.
James, last but not least.
Yeah, well, we do a little, it's only fun, no pressure. It's
No
5
pressure.
Out, 5 out of 6, I think it's a 5 out of 6.
Steve Maka did well, and that
Yeah.
was a solid
Steve-
5.5, wasn't it,
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
6?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 6 questions. You know why it's 6
And
questions?
Steve Nicol was on about 8 pints by now,
Yeah.
and he got 1 out of 6, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
You'll be
I
all right.
think you've already got a couple of these from your earlier
Yeah,
answers.
But James,
Okay.
you don't know the
You're on
6
a
questions,
solid basis,
obviously,
yeah.
because of 6 times. You know,
Yeah.
I've won it 6 times. So, just relax, mate. You'll be all right.
Could be 7 next year.
I hope so. And James has made the questions up, so if it's too hard, he's the twat.
Okay. I thought you were going to give me the paper. If it's too hard, you can have the answers.
Right, number 1. You made your Liverpool debut against Forest,
You mentioned
August
this, yeah.
1992. Who scored the
Tertiary.
winner that day? Correct.
Top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
I dove with my left foot, so my right. But anyway,
Number 2. How many times were you named in the Premier League PFA Team of the Year? A bonus point if you can get the years.
I'm going to say 2.
Yes.
Correct.
Well done.
95, 96.
Correct.
Yeah.
And 2007, 2008.
Correct.
Boom.
That's
I
impressive.
tell you what, very impressed.
Right. You are joint 76th in Liverpool's all-time appearance list on 277. A former Liverpool manager played the same number of games as you for the club. Can you name him?
Wow.
Oh,
You put that one from the cheeks of your ass, haven't you?
That's
I
had no idea.
I tell you what, I'm gonna Kevin Keegan.
No.
He didn't manage Liverpool.
No, try again. Yeah, he's
Manager. No, I do. He came up on the screen there, so I know. Kevin Keegan, he played Hamlet. Former Liverpool manager. Oh, dear.
I wish Kevin would have done, actually. He'd been an interesting manager.
No, he was there for too long. Blimey.
One of the icons.
Yeah,
Not Kenny Dalglish.
Go back a bit before that.
I think it's not going to
No,
happen.
I'm not going to get it. No.
Bob Paisley. He played 277 as well.
Tough one, though.
Tough
That
one.
was a tough one.
Yeah, but
The
I've
other
got
ones
bonus
are
points,
easy.
so I'm still on
Number
3
4, you kept 102 clean sheets for Liverpool. Only 6 goalkeepers have kept more. Who holds the record for the most clean sheets in Liverpool history? Should get that, mate.
It would have to be Clem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Clem conceded. See, people forget this. He conceded 16 goals in a 44-goal season. He only conceded 4 at Anfield
right.
that
It's
season.
ridiculous.
So people talk
That's
about
right.
Petr Cech's
And
Premier League record.
Liverpool only used
Was it 14
14
players? all
players,
season?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's because Phil Neal had size 12 boots.
With his big toes.
Who's injured? Have a look at the size of their shoes.
This one's a nice easy one. Number 5, you had 1 red card for Liverpool. Who was it against?
Norwich. Wow.
Yeah. And
4 out of 5. Well done.
number 6, you'll get this one. You played 212 consecutive games for Liverpool. Who took your place when that run ended against Villa?
Lost 3-2, Brad Friedel. I didn't warm up that game. 'Cause Roy Evans
You took it well.
He didn't tell me till the hotel. And I'm like, fuck. Jamie, you coming out training? No, fuck off.
I mean, that's 6 really with the bonus point,
got the
right?
bonus, so
Congratulations, David.
Yes.
Oh,
You did well.
Well, Jamie got 5. He's joint leader.
6. I got a bonus
He
point.
got a bonus point for
So-
the PFA team.
Well, he took the lead. Well done, mate. Great, pal.
Thanks for coming, David. Thanks for being with us.
That's it. The end of the 18th podcast. Everyone, I'd like to thank JMO for saying that. It's been brilliant. And obviously, me too, mate, Peter, and the fella there. He's all right as well, James. He's not been bad as well. So we'll see you the next one.
Lovely.